Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our inspirational interviews. I am here today with nutritionist Matt Rymond, and I'm so excited to talk with you, Matt. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Hannah. I'm very excited too, and I really am looking forward to our conversation today.
Yay. Yeah, so we originally connected through, well, I think you have a friend who has worked with me, and then she put you in touch with what I'm doing, and you were curious about Ayurveda, and then we got to talking about, well, how does this overlap with modern day nutrition? So I'm super excited to talk with you and to hear your insights. You're also a very avid outdoorsman and rock climber, and a lot of awareness about body mechanics and nourishing yourself for longevity and support and movement. If anybody who's watching live has questions along the way, feel free to type them in the chat. We are going live using StreamYard, so if you can give StreamYard permission so we can see your name, then we can address you specifically. So Matt, if anybody types in a question, I'll let you know. I'll be the question asker.
Right.
So I would love to just read your I'm going to read your little bio here that we have, and then start asking you some questions.
Great. Let's do it.
So Matt is a lover of nature and all good food. He's been a registered dietitian since 2009 and is passionate about health and well-being all of his life. Always moving, Matt explores movement in all its forms, including rock climbing, primal movement, yoga, trail running, open water swimming, and more. With a shared passion for both performance and longevity, Matt blends the best of both worlds so you can thrive for a lifetime. In the spirit of perpetual growth, he is an avid learner, exploring the latest nutrition research, traditional healing arts, and the delicious food, language, culture, and beliefs that reflect our magnificently diverse world. So exciting. So thanks for being here. And I would love to hear what brought you to do this work. What in your life was like, oh, nutrition.
Oh, great question. When I was much younger in high school, I suddenly developed an interest in nutrition and all things health related. I'd love to tell you there was this pivotal moment, but I just woke up one day at 16 and said, this seems important. And my initial interest was all in athletics, and I love that still. But I put maybe about a decade worth of work into a lot of variety of fields of traditional healthcare as well, which met some other needs for personal fulfillment. And I think now, after I think I've been a dietitian about 12 or 13 years now, I'm coming back to kind of that first love of activity and movement and kind of blending all of those important parts of a human life into one kind of focused nutrition program.
Awesome. That's so exciting. So tell us a little bit about like what are some of the basic pillars of nutrition these days?
Great
How would you
question.
describe that?
So I think, and this is challenging in today's world because lots of the items that are consumables and edibles don't fit this description. But I think for the most part, we want everything we eat to come right from the earth as much as possible. Mostly plants, though I generally say not all plants in most cases. And I think there's a big emphasis on not overeating. And not overeating is really difficult because our bodies really want us to overeat. And our culture really wants us to overeat. But if you do those things, and as a result, you manage your weight, your blood sugar, and your blood pressure, well, your likelihood of like long-term chronic disease and then substances that hurt us, right, goes down tremendously. And your quality of life, goes up tremendously.
Yeah. Yeah. So all of those things are so key, and that's totally in alignment with what I teach. Plant-based, but not necessarily all plants, but so tell us a little bit about how you diversify, like in Ayurveda we have the doshas, right?
Mhm.
So there's these different constitutions, and we say like for vata, pitta, and kapha, there's some different individual nutritional needs. How do you determine what people need?
Yeah, great question. So it's very individual. It depends on their lifestyle, right? Whether they're active, how active they are, what types of activities and intensities, what their goals are. For example, I'm working with someone now who could have a variety of goals, but this person's first goal is to improve their blood sugar control. So there's a
Mm,
lot of things that we could do different, but what we're honing in are things that will specifically affect their blood sugars. We could work on things that say reduce pain or reduce the risk of long-term illness like Alzheimer's, or help them move a little bit more freely in their yoga class if they have a wonderful instructor somewhere in Virginia, but named Hannah. Uh, you know, but I think having things divided by doshas has its own value. I tend to do things really individually.
hmm Yeah, I mean, we work with folks individually too, but understanding dosha gives us a little bit of a framework just in general without having to know a whole lot of
Mhm.
real specifics. There's a few things that you've mentioned that I want to cycle back to. So one of them is active versus inactive.
Mhm.
So what is the nutritional difference, or how do you see that as a nutritionist, working with people who are very active in their lives versus inactive?
Yeah, great question. I think it depends on how much they need of molecules of exertion, right? So generally when you're active, unless you're like a high level athlete, eating more calories to meet your activity goal needs tends to meet your micronutrient intake needs. So if you need a little more vitamin C, you'll probably get it by eating a little more food. Um,
Mhm.
if you have an activity that's fairly intense, like weightlifting, where the energy systems you're using are like creatine and glucose, well, you want to make sure you're getting enough carbohydrate. If you're doing more endurance, low intensity activities that uses more fat, you don't necessarily have to increase your carbohydrate as much. And then your protein needs vary based on your activity level too.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah,
don't know if that was too general, but
yeah. Well, I'm just curious, like, um, are so do you work in terms of calories or ounces, or like how do you have people measure food?
oh, okay. Yeah. So that also depends on the person. Usually I don't have the measure. It's usually approximate. And the reason is
Right.
just kind of practical that for a lot of people who struggle with eating as healthy as they would like, it can be very overwhelming to measure, log, and all of those things. Um, but I think that if a person's really struggling, having a period of time of weighing and measuring and logging is really helpful. In
Yeah.
particular, because a lot of us have the best of intentions, but really misestimate. And so this kind of
Mhm.
avoids, an inaccurate estimate.
Mhm. Great. Yeah, that sounds wise, helpful, right? Um, so, another thing you mentioned was about working with blood sugar, and I see Claire is here. Um, so that made me think of, so Claire has recently been diagnosed with diabetes, but she's an underweight diabetic,
Mm.
and so I've been learning more about different types of diabetes. Um, so I do you have anything to say about that? Like,
Well, hello,
about
Claire.
working with.
Well, I think I can dovetail a couple thoughts. So to add a little more to your prior question, a lot of times I will look at calories to get you on the dartboard, and then we'll
Uh-huh.
look at how much protein you need next. Then we'll consider carbohydrate and make sure that you get enough healthy fat. So maybe that's a little bit more of a structured answer to your question.
Mhm.
So yeah, Claire, without knowing you personally, which is too bad, I'm sure you're lovely. The
She is.
outline I laid out would be really good. So generally, we might do something like we take your current weight and we divide it by 2.2. That's how we convert it to kilograms. And then we might give you 30 to 35 calories per kilogram. And then we might add about 300 to 500 calories to help you gain some body weight. And then we'd look at, well, what kind of body weight do we want to gain? Maybe you're really fit and strong. You've got a lot of muscle. We don't have to worry about that. And so we don't need to increase your resistance training or protein as much. Maybe you want to build some muscle. And so we increase both of those. And then we take a look at your blood sugars and we take a look at your medications and say, well, what kind of flexibility do we have here? If a person's last A1C was 12, that means their blood sugar is really high. Well, we'll probably focus on really healthy fats. If their blood sugars are really well controlled, we'll focus on healthy fats and maybe some increased carbohydrate so that they can increase the intensity of their training to build muscle if that's a goal. So there's a lot of considerations, but those would be the things that we would take a look at. And then, of course, we take a look at what's important to you. What do you feel confident, comfortable doing? What are your priorities? And kind of blend all those together in a really, delicious success salad. So
delicious success salad. There you go, Claire. That's it's very interesting. Like just learning more about all these the different ways of working with blood sugar, and that so back to another thing that you mentioned earlier is that we live in a culture that supports overeating.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that as really a foundational issue in terms of so many of the health issues that we have. Weight is definitely an issue. I mean, over 70% of our country is overweight or obese.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's pretty scary, right? Diabetes is on the rise. And then all other health related issues to overeating. And sometimes it's not about weight gain. Sometimes it's just about a system that's too taxed, even if the overeating isn't leading directly to weight gain. It's that the system is not getting a chance to rest.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I'd love to hear you just talk a little bit about I guess two things. One is our culture and how unwell we are in our relationship to food. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is what you have to say about resting periods of consuming nutrition intake.
Got it. Well, yeah, really nothing really to say there. So good interview. Thanks so much. No. Yeah. So, I think, when we look at things like mind, body, and spirit, where we think about things from like an Ayurvedic perspective about like balance and order, right? And a well body or imbalanced disorder and a diseased body. I think that all those things, work together. So for example, let's say a couple nights in a row, you get 4 hours of sleep, which isn't unusual if you work a lot, you have kids, right? So what's going to happen is you're going to get up on that third morning and, you might pound some coffee, or, you might really crave something sweet because you're going to crave sweet, sugary foods when you don't sleep well. And then what's going to happen is you're going to get, you're going to need all these, you're going to have these energy highs and lows where you're riding that energy wave. And because you're consuming a lot of calories at once, your body's going to use less fat for fuel and it's going to store a lot of that sugar, right? Because it has that sugar that's readily available. So it'll use it, which isn't bad. And it doesn't want all that toxic sugar in the blood. Again, sugar in the blood isn't toxic. Too much for too long is. And you're going to have stress hormones, so you'll probably eat more. And so that's how you get that cycle of weight gain, and which stresses your joints, chronic pain, sleep apnea, things like that. So you're right. When I assess someone, I do often look at what's our biggest bang for our buck. And sometimes it isn't diet. Right? Sometimes people have an unhealthy weight and they're not eating much of anything. And actually we have to get them used to the fact they're going to have to eat more. They may even gain a couple pounds, right? As we get you to what healthy self-care looks like. And then things can gradually become more healthy from there. Yeah, thank you. Regularize. It's a new word. So yeah, did I answer your question? I hope I did. I don't know if I can comment on that more, but that was what that thought prompted in terms of like balancing the body out and getting back to normal.
Yeah. I think it's it is really important. I love that you brought in sleep
Mhm.
as a precursor to creating imbalance too, because it's huge. And I think a lot of people don't realize how important it is in terms of
Mhm.
hormone balance and
Mhm.
healthy cravings
Mhm.
and our ability to make good choices. And when we're
Ab-
sleep deprived, all our bodies want is fast energy,
Absolutely.
and that's your sugar, fat, salt.
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of our instincts are designed around a world that was very physically dangerous, right? If we go back
Mm,
thousands of years and we're concerned about other animals or not getting enough food. So, but we don't necessarily have those. Now, a lot of our stress is the kids won't stop crying, or there's 4 reports due in 5 minutes. And those are
mhm,
things that don't necessarily require us to eat a lot more. So the danger is often what our instincts stimulate us to do, which is really over consuming.
mm,
Also, a lot of food isn't really particularly nutritious, but what it does do is it stimulates that stress relief response. Right? I mean,
mhm.
when you're really stressed out, you're not looking for a kale smoothie, but a big burger and fries and you can buy practically a gallon of pop at a time now. Well,
Right.
that really makes you feel better, which
Mm,
is also why people, in my opinion, often feel that lower quality food is very affordable because it fills them up and it satisfies their stress response. So actually, one of the skills, there's a lot of skills that you can develop, and one of the skills is figure out if you're hungry or not, which is much easier to say than to do. That's tough.
mhm.
And also to avoid eating things that stimulate to eat you excessively, because what you're doing is stimulating an addictive behavior.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So do you have techniques for that, or like do you have people journal, or what, how do you have people check in with those things?
Yeah, so I think journals are great. If someone is willing to do that, I do that. It's a lot of like self reflection because a
Mhm.
lot of it isn't, oh, I shouldn't be eating burgers and fries every day. I guess I'll just stop. Because most
Right.
people know that that's not a health giving diet. So journaling is really good. And I think sometimes the journaling isn't about food, sometimes it is about the emotions and really making that point of personal reflection. And I think that's
Mhm.
where having someone to work with you is really important because I think
Yeah,
a certain number of people, you can give them the information and they apply it and they're fine. But I think for the most part, food is so deeply interwoven into our emotions, our lifestyle, our budget, and everything that to untangle all of that and retangle new behaviors, it's helpful to have someone do that with you.
absolutely. Yeah, and what I find is that people don't know what it's like to feel better until they
Mm,
get the help, right? Like
yeah.
they just think they are the way they are. Like they're stuck with
Mhm.
the weight gain that they have, or that they don't have any energy or brain fog or whatever, and it's just the way things are. And I think a lot of times it takes that being willing to experiment and try
Mhm.
to do things a little differently to get to a place of noticing that you actually can feel really different,
Mhm.
without drastic means, but
Mhm.
it can feel drastic at first. Um, one of the things that's interesting in Ayurveda is we have this awareness. I don't know if you know about this. This might be cool to add to your practice. But if so the nostrils are connected to two energy channels.
Okay.
Um, there's a masculine and feminine. Um,
Mhm.
but when you are actually hungry, so this is a satiety check-in,
Mhm.
basically. When your body is actually ready to receive food, if you breathe in through both nostrils, like here, let's try this right now. Like if you breathe in through both nostrils, can you tell if you have one nostril that's more open than the other?
Let me try again.
Okay.
I'll say I'm often stuffy, but
Okay.
the right does feel more open than the left.
Okay. And let's see if this works. How long has it been since you've had a meal?
Hmm. Let's see. I had a breakfast around 8:30, and then a half a smoothie around 11:30. So it's really only been an hour 20 since I ate something.
Okay, interesting. But the right nostril's more open. So, and you did, were you pretty active this morning too?
I wouldn't say I was moving around. I would say active. I wouldn't say anything that qualifies as like exercise, but I had to run some errands.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So in general, if the right nostril is open, then your body is ready to receive food. And so
Mm,
you can notice at the end of meals too that the right nostril is less open. So this could just be
mhm,
something to play around with. I think it does take some practice with observation. In general, it's not common that it's so soon after eating that it's opened up, but it's something that could be fun to play around with. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw in that little bit of Ayurvedic wisdom there too, because I think it is something that a lot of people struggle with, is that we live in a time where we're overfed and undernourished. And so what does it actually feel like to be nourished? And in um, a lot of cases, people don't know what authentic hunger feels like
mm,
anymore. They've lost that connection. It's like, well, if there's food available, eat it, or if it's time of day to eat, then you eat. Um, and that's something that we explore in the detoxes that I lead, is
mm.
to we're not stopping eating, but we're exploring what is authentic hunger.
Yeah.
Well, when is your body really ready to receive food? It's not like, oh, well, I could eat something. I went through a period of time in my early 20s where I was like, if I feel remotely hungry or interested in
Mhm,
food, I should eat.
mhm.
And I gained a bunch of weight, which, isn't surprising now knowing what I know, but it was interesting what I started seeing as a cue as of hunger. And often people are dehydrated too,
Mhm.
and mistaken thirst for hunger. Um, how do you see that combination of hydration and food?
Oh, yeah, I definitely think that it can be a fluid issue. I also think
Hmm.
fluid's a good test.
Hmm.
I'll add though that that little half smoothie wasn't a whole lot, so it's been
Yeah.
about 3 to 4 hours since I had a real meal. So
Okay.
that could be, I mean,
Yeah.
really, it was like a cup of smoothie. So
So you're
um,
ready to have lunch after this interview.
for sure.
Yeah. Awesome.
Actually, one of the tests that I'll use, or one of the things I help people do, is first, if you feel hungry, really try to relax, whether it's meditation or
Hmm.
some breathing activities. The next thing is to drink something like tea or water, something that will that will hydrate you and also give you that test. Am I still hungry? After
Hmm.
all of that, after that water's kind of, you get that fluid some time to process. If you're still truly hungry, as opposed to just not full, which I think is an important distinction between not full and truly hungry, then
Right.
yeah, I think it's a good time to eat some food.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Um, are there any particular foods that you encourage people to steer towards in the summertime?
Oh, other than like what's local and fresh, not in particular. I
Hmm.
think one of the biggest things I encourage people to eat more of, though, are just dark leafy greens,
Hmm.
because it's one of the things that you essentially can't eat too much of, and most people don't eat enough of. And
Mm,
thankfully, those are pretty readily available in the summer.
right. Yes, wild and grown, right?
Yeah,
You can
absolutely.
you can find those. And what else about like um I I guess I'm curious if there are any like specifics, like do you find yourself recommending certain um I guess, like, what trends do you see in the work that you do? And what do you feel like I have things definitely in my practice that I could say, like, I feel kind of like I'm a broken record. Like I kind of say these
Mm.
basic things to a lot of people, which is why I developed my group program, because then I could just say it to a whole lot of people all at once. Like, are there things that you find yourself saying that you're like, I wish everybody just knew this?
Oh, good question. Well, actually, a lot of what we've talked about today fits that description in terms of like identifying what truly is hunger,
Uh-huh.
letting yourself feel hunger. Um, I think other things that I do talk about a lot. I work with people including turmeric in their diet quite a bit.
Mm,
That has, I mean, a tremendous amount of benefit, whether it's emotion, mood, reduction of depression, reducing inflammation, and reducing joint pain. reducing long-term risk of dementia. So it's something that I recommend pretty often, whether it be a dash in a smoothie or more than a dash in many cases, or cutting up the root and putting it in with the food you eat. So that's a really common one. And then the other one really is taking the time to do the food journal. And the reason is that we're really often not aware of things like how much we eat, when we eat. So your body does really well if you can limit what you eat to about a 12-hour window or less in some cases, but 12 is fine. There isn't necessarily need to do more of a limitation than that. And people say, sure, I eat within 12 hours, and they don't realize that they start at 6:30 and they end at 11:30, which is definitely not 12 hours. So awareness is where a lot of it starts. And so getting people on the pattern of doing the food journal and being very gracious with themselves at first, because it starts to bring up all the things that you're not doing well, all the emotions you have about not doing what you want to do, and so on. But I think that's the other piece, is that awareness piece through journaling.
Yeah.
And that can be any different way, right? You could take pictures, you could do it online, you could do it on pen and paper. It's whatever works for you.
Yeah, great. I think that's so key, like actually seeing the reality. Because I think a lot of us say, like, oh, I eat lots of fruits and vegetables, or I don't snack, and then when we have to like actually see, like, oh, did I eat any vegetables today? I don't see many on there, right? Then it becomes more of a reality check. And then we can see the work we need to do. Then we're not surprised by our results. Yeah. So we're coming to the end of our time. Where can people find you and learn more about what you do, Matt?
Yeah, great. So the best thing to do is just reach out to me by email. I can send it to you, but it's really simple. It's my name, which I have to say, everyone, 35, everyone for 35 years says my last name incorrectly, but Hannah got it right.
Whoop,
That was
whoop.
very impressive. So it's just Matt Rymond, MattRymond. Then there's an RDN for registered dietitian nutritionist. And don't ask me why my credentialing agency wants me to have the longest credential on the face of the planet. But Matt Rymond, RDN@gmail.com. Reach out. Would love to work with you in any capacity that you find helpful to you. And yeah, thank you so much, Hannah, for having me on. It's been such a pleasure and joy to speak with you.
Yes, thanks for being a guest on our inspirational interview. So yeah, if folks have questions here, Matt, I think you're in our group, right? Are you in the? Yeah. So if any of you have, oh, thanks. Kelly just wrote your email address in the chat. So it's right there. Thanks, Kelly. Most awesome VA ever. And if you all have questions that you want to type in the chat, Matt will be able to see them because he's in our group, which is so cool.
Absolutely.
So let's keep the conversation going. And yeah, you're getting lots of thank yous, lots of gratitude for sharing your knowledge today. So have a great afternoon, Matt. Go get some lunch, see if your nostrils shift. We'll talk soon.
Can't wait. Thank you so much, everyone. Great to be here with you. Thanks, Hannah.
Yay. Bye. Bye.